This is the Windows Productivity Tools for Game Developers talk. A little bit about us up here. My name is Kayla Cinnamon. I'm a product manager here at Microsoft, and I was the former PM for Windows Terminal. So we delivered the new command line experience on Windows 11 back in 2019, and then now I'm PM for PowerToys, as well as just the developer experience on Windows in general. And I'm here with Demetrius.
Hey everybody, I'm also a product manager at Microsoft. I primarily work on WinGet, the Windows Package Manager, and focusing on a lot of the other challenges that developers have in Windows. We've got a bunch of demo stuff going on here. It's going to be very action-packed and fast, so hold on for the ride.
Yeah, so we've been spending the last 5 to 10 years deliberately working on the developer experience and trying to address all of the issues or little things that you want fixed in Windows. So we've been actively trying to make that experience better. So if you see something you like, please clap, cheer, just let us know that it's resonating with you. I think everyone's going to learn something new here today and will hopefully find it useful. And there's going to be a ton of demos, and it's going to be pretty quick. So we recommend maybe watching this one more time when you get home, because there's a ton of stuff. So to kind of frame how we're going to walk through this today, we're going to go through the developer lifecycle and talk about features we've added to help improve each phase of the lifecycle, which is onboarding into the inner loop and then the outer loop. And then we'll give you a recap and a slide on how to get all of the information and get started. So what is the developer lifecycle? So I'm sure a lot of us here have done this, as we're all developers here. You start with onboarding. That's purchasing your laptop or your PC, and then setting it up, getting all the packages you need, getting everything installed. From there, you move into the inner loop, and this is where we spend most of our time. This is where we're coding, compiling, etc. And this is where performance really makes the biggest impact in our day-to-day. And then from there, we move to the outer loop, where it's basically everything that's not coding. So it's your Teams messages, presentations, pushing to CI/CD, that sort of stuff. So to start with onboarding, here's a suite of tools that we've been working on to help improve onboarding. So just to get a gauge of who we're chatting with here, because this is our first time at GDC, how many of you recognize at least one of the icons up here by show of hands? Okay, everybody? That's awesome.
Yep. So if there's anybody in here that recognizes every single one of them, raise your hands.
Nice.
Okay,
cool.
Cool.
Great. Okay, sweet. All right, we're amongst friends here. So these are all the tools that we work on. Not all of them. This is a good subset of them. So Windows Terminal, we've got Windows Package Manager or WinGet, WSL, which is the Windows Subsystem for Linux, and then we have Microsoft DevBox, which is a cloud version of Windows, and then also DevDrive, which is a new performance drive we've been working on as well. So we're going to get into these, as well as kind of load up this chart. This is going to be the thing that we're going to fill in throughout today. So we'll show you Windows features, PowerToys features, WSL and Terminal features, as well as WinGet. And then we'll fill them in as we go through that developer lifecycle with all the features that we've been adding to help make that cycle more seamless. So to kick it off, let's talk about Windows Terminal. Windows Terminal is the new command line experience. It's new to me. It's about 5 years old now. And we open sourced it on GitHub. It's one of the first pieces of Windows that was open sourced, which is really exciting. And we've added a lot of fan favorite features to make the terminal experience that much better. And I'll show you a quick video of my terminal and some of these features in action. So this is my customized terminal with a wallpaper. There's a list of all of my profiles, so I can open Command Prompt, PowerShell, any other shell that we can all open in the same terminal window. There's a command palette in terminal you can open with Control-Shift-P, and you can get to any action you need within the terminal. I'm splitting panes here, so you can have multiple views of different shells all at once if you need, and then kind of split the windows up like that. And then we also have a Quake mode, which Quake, the video game. If you hit Windows key backtick, you can get a quick Quake-like terminal console window from the top of your monitor. Quickly add the command that you need and then dismiss it right away. So these are just a few features in Terminal that we've been delivering just to make the command line experience better. And I think from here I'll hand to Demetrius to talk a bit more about the package manager.
Thanks. So WinGet is the Windows Package Manager, and we know if you're familiar with Linux that Linux has had package management probably for close to 2 decades. This is fairly new to Windows. Some differences where not everything is a file in Windows. We have the registry and some other fun things to contend with. But when you open it up and run it, you'll see a lot of the help. Some of the favorite things are upgrade all, which will upgrade every piece of software on your system with one command, even if it wasn't installed using WinGet. Rainbow progress bar is a crowd feature, and the Sixels rendering of icons is also new, and that's pretty fantastic. That was something recently added in Terminal. So the first thing people want to know is, where are these packages coming from? So WinGet's going to ship with 2 default sources. One is the Microsoft Store. It's going to make everything available that's rated E for everyone and free. We're not yet at a point where we want to deal with age ratings and some of the other things on the WinGet side. And then the other main location is the community repository that's open source at GitHub. So this is where anybody can come in, they can submit a manifest for a package. We're going to run through and do a lot of validations on the metadata that's submitted. We're going to do static analysis on the installer to look for PUA or malware. If all of that automation passes, we go into a dynamic environment where we do dynamic analysis. We actually install it, look to see what files are getting written, see if anything's getting pulled down from the internet. If that succeeds without any user interaction required, then we'll go into kind of a first launch where we run the program to see if anything strange happens. If all of that is good, it'll go back to the community for moderation, where somebody from Microsoft or one of our trusted community members will approve that. Generally, they're just looking to see that the description makes sense, all the URLs align with the product, nobody's trying to do some squatting with tags or names or something like that. And I think the last time I checked, we had close to 7,800 packages in the repository, and it's growing pretty much every day. So the basic flow for how typical use happens is people are going to go in, and the first thing they're going to want to do is search for something. We've got a lot of different fields that we run through that we look at when we're doing search. So you might see the matching on tag or moniker or name. In this case, I'm searching for VS Code, which happens to be a moniker. The next thing you're going to do is typically show. It's going to give you some metadata about that particular package, the latest version. It'll let you know which installer would be used and the security hash from it so that you can sanity check what you're installing. You'll also notice I've got Sixels enabled, so there's the icon in the terminal. And then once you're sure that's the package you want, WinGet install is going to download that package from the URL. It's going to check the SHA-256 hash for security match, and if it matches, it'll install it for you. So that's Windows Package Manager dealing with package management. I'm going to switch gears a little bit now, and we're going to go over into configuration management. This is our foray into configuration as code. One of the things that's been really challenging, we've heard this from a lot of people, is you join a new project, you get a job at a new company, or you've got a new machine, you've got to go through a lot of process to get everything set up and configured the way you like it. On the right-hand side, there's a YAML file. It's designed to be human readable and to be declarative, meaning it just describes what the environment looks like. And the image on the left is the .NET team recently updated their Hello World tutorial, and it's a WinGet configuration file-based setup. So now instead of go to some website, download some apps, launch them, click some settings, all you end up having to do is just download the WinGet file and double-click it. So in this case, what you'll see is WinGet is going to be launched in your default terminal. It's going to analyze that configuration file to check and make sure that it's valid. You'll see a really big yellow prompt that is basically saying, make sure you know what's in this file. It could do anything. This is very powerful. And assuming you agree to it when you say yes, it's going to go ahead and apply that desired state, where that means installing things or adjusting settings doesn't really matter. And if your system is already in the desired state, it will basically do a no operation, so there's no performance hit.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of the basics on WinGet. I'm going to hand it back over to Kayla to talk a little bit about another one of the products on our team.
Cool. Thanks, Demetrius. So we've talked about Terminal, we talked about Windows Package Manager or WinGet. Since we're in the command line already, let's talk about Linux on Windows. So we deliver the Windows Subsystem for Linux, which helps you get all of your Linux commands in a Linux environment directly on Windows, which is really handy when you want to still use the Windows tooling, but to have the command line experience of Linux Bash. And you can also have GUI apps if you want. So if you do like that Linux Chrome on all of your Windows, you can have that have those windows in Windows as Linux windows if you want. And I'll show a little bit later how to get started with WSL, but this is really handy, especially if you have a development environment or a production environment in Linux, but you're working on a Windows machine and you want to stay local. The next thing we've been working on is dev drive, and this is intended to help you get the most performance out of your machine when developing. So it's a dedicated drive that's built on REFS, which is the resilient file system, in contrast to NTFS, which is what C drive is built on. And it's intended to give you faster performance in developer scenarios, most specifically with I/O operations. It also puts Defender into a performance mode, so it's asynchronous, so to help remove that layer of barrier when it comes to performance to help give you that boost. There's also filter manager control for Defender with DevDrive. I'm not going to talk about how to set that up, but we have docs on how to do that if you want to manage those filters with a little bit more fine-grained detail. And I have a video next to kind of demonstrate just a little bit of the perf boost that we've been adding to DevDrive. So before I hit play, I'll explain what's going on my screen. This is my terminal. On the left is C drive, so the NTFS standard drive, and on the right is D drive, or my dev drive. And I have a 10 gigabit file, a VHDX file, that I'm going to copy on both, and we've been working on improving performance where the copy action will be almost instantaneous in a dev drive, and I'll show you that. So here I'm going to open Command Palette. I'm actually going to use the broadcast mode feature, which lets me type the same thing at the same time in all of my panes. And you can see I've got the large VHDX file, and then I'm going to measure how long it's going to take to copy this file into a new instance. You can see here on the right in the dev drive, it was less than a second, maybe like a tenth of a second, and C drive is still going. And what we're doing here is a metadata copy over on the dev drive. So rather than copying bit by bit on C, it's pretty much instantaneous when doing it in a dev drive. Looks like C drive just finished, took about 15 seconds. So yes, we are giving you REFS, but then on top of that, we're actively working to help improve the performance of just different scenarios that you would be doing within a dev drive. And from here, I'll hand it back to Demetrius to talk about DevBox.
All right, so Microsoft DevBox is essentially a ready-to-go environment running on Azure. Your team would be able to go in, have whatever security policies and required tools you need, and when you log in, it's just ready to code. So you can see in this screenshot, this is actually a first login from one of the images that we've got. You can see the IDE is there, Unity is there. I haven't done anything. And the great news is, if you don't like the look and feel here, you can pass in a WinGet configuration file when you build your Microsoft DevBox, and it'll apply all of those customizations for you just like you like it. So from here, we're going to go into a little bit of a kind of an overview type of a video pair here. So this first one is looking at optimizing the machine setup. So imagine you're going to go to contribute a new feature to PowerToys, which probably would make Kayla very happy, and you're trying to figure out how would I get set up. So typically you've got that long README and all the crazy instructions. In this case, we're just going to create a fork. We're going to clone that fork, and I have this sped up a little bit on the video, but I am doing this in a dev drive, and because Git is one of those file I/O intensive types of things, I'll get a better performance out of that. And then once the clone is done, all I need to do is navigate to the .config directory and look to see, do they have any WinGet configuration files for me? And you'll see that here. And there are actually more than one. The default one we would recommend using as configuration.winget. And in this case for PowerToys, that's going to use Visual Studio Community Edition. But if you've already got Enterprise or Pro SKU, or you prefer either of those, you just run the configuration that is suitable for that environment. So here I'm going to run the default. You're not going to have to wait for the full install. A lot of these things are already preloaded on my system. And what that's going to do is what you saw before. You'll see that prompt for, are you sure you want to run this? And if I say yes, it starts going through and applying it. And in this case, as I'm going through and doing that, and it's looking to add the extension to Visual Studio, you see I got a red error there. That message is telling me that administrative rights are required. I don't want to have to open up an admin window and do this from scratch, so I'm going to run sudo, which allows me to run that process elevated. I'll get a UAC prompt. We'll then be able to have this configuration run and complete to success. And I know I mentioned sudo, and that's a Linux command. So Kayla, why don't you give us a little bit more detail on that one?
Yeah, for sure. I can talk about sudo.
Sure.
Sudo, yeah. Since we're talking about sudo, and he used it on the Windows side, this is something we've added to Windows. It's in the for developer settings, but you can enable it and use sudo as you would on Linux, but directly on Windows. So here is a WinGet command. I'm sure you're familiar with what this one does. Clearly, I need admin privileges. Instead of having to launch a new terminal instance as administrator, I can go enable sudo in my settings and stay within my same context. So if you go to the for developers page, here at the bottom, there's an enable sudo option. You're just going to want to turn this on, and then it should work right away, where once it's enabled, I can head back, run the same command, but put sudo in front, and it should just execute no problem. When I recorded this, I have a second monitor hooked up, which you'll see references of throughout the talk. It did work. The admin prompt to say, like, are you cool doing this, launched on my main monitor, but it did execute and didn't give me the error. So that's sudo, comes in Windows. You can use it now, and you don't need WSL to get this, but I will show you how to get started with Windows Subsystem for Linux. So WSL is great when you want to work in a Linux workflow. Here in my dropdown, I don't have any WSL distros, but Terminal will be able to detect it once I get it set up and add it in. So to get started, I'll run WSL --install, and this is going to enable the Linux kernel that comes with Windows down in the system. And once this completes, I will have to do a machine reboot just to enable the rest of those bits, and the machine's aware of the kernel. So you'll see a little timestamp change when I restart. And then from here, I want to get started with the distro. So I've restarted my terminal and restarted my machine, and you can see WSL is enabled, but I don't have any distributions. If I just type WSL --install, WSL will automatically get Ubuntu, but you can get pretty much any flavor of Linux that you'd like. There's a lot. Kali Linux, Debian, OpenSUSE, there's a good amount. But we default to Ubuntu, so once you run it one more time, you'll install Ubuntu, and I can run WSL -d Ubuntu to launch that, and then I'll need to do the final configuration by setting my username and password, which typically happens with every distro once you get started. So I'm going to set this, and then it should initialize, and now I'm in WSL. So I am in a Linux file system. If I run ls, there's nothing here. And to prove that this is Linux, I'm going to run sudo again. It's the Linux version this time, but then I'll have apt update, which is something that is in Ubuntu, which will update all of my existing packages here in my distro. So once this finishes, Terminal isn't aware of it yet. I will have to restart Terminal to have it recognize Ubuntu, because it's working, but it's not in the dropdown. So I'm going to close Terminal. And when you install WSL and get it set up, we just delivered this new welcome page to kind of give you all of the tips and tricks and features that come with WSL that I'm not showing today. But you can dig around in this a bit more to see all the features that WSL comes with. But I'm going to reboot Terminal really quick, and then now Terminal's detected that shell of Ubuntu and has automatically added it in my dropdown here at the bottom. And we've even gone far enough to add the Ubuntu purple background, so it feels like home when you're in Ubuntu, and then it still works just the same as it would. So that's getting started with WSL, and we could just take a breather for a second, because I know that was a lot. So let's recap what we've done so far. We've looked at dev drive for getting that performance boost when developing on a dedicated drive, and also sudo that comes as a feature in Windows. And then we've also talked about installing Ubuntu with WSL, and then all of the great commands that Demetrius showed in WinGet with search, show, install, the configuration option with configure, and .vsconfig support also. And all of these tools together are intended to help make that onboarding process easier, so getting your machine set up is just a little bit faster. So now from here, we'll go into the inner loop, and I'm going to have Demetrius take us there.
Thanks, Kayla. All right, so now we've got a machine all set up and we're ready to code. We're going to jump into that inner loop where hopefully we're spending most of our time building features, fixing bugs, doing those kinds of things. And one of the things that's really common when you get there is you want to be able to make sure all your software is updated, you've got the latest version of everything. So I mentioned before, WinGet can upgrade anything on your system, even things that weren't installed using WinGet. It's able to do correlation against metadata from what's in the registry in Windows and what we have available in a configured source. Upgrade all will upgrade everything. Sometimes you don't want that behavior. You can go in and pin a package. You can say, hey, I need this exact version. I don't want it to be changed. Or you could say, hey, I'm okay with 1.2 and bug fixes, but I don't want 1.3. You can also do it at the major level. So you've got total flexibility there for how that behaves. And I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Kayla to cover her favorite tools.
Cool. Thanks. So this is PowerToys. PowerToys is really great in the inner loop, not so much for onboarding because you need to go install it. But PowerToys is a suite of utilities that just makes Windows that much more awesome. So it's pretty much anything you could think of that doesn't ship in Windows that you might want to have. We're also open source on GitHub, and there's a ton of utilities in there, I think at least 30 at this point, that are just intended to help with productivity and to help keep you in your flow. So I've got a few demos of some PowerToys to help kind of demonstrate the breadth that we deliver and ways that you can be more productive in the inner loop. So to start, I want to talk about workspaces. So I'm sure we're all creatures of habit. When we get to our machine in the morning, we put the same windows in the same place on the screen and the same layout every time. I know I do it, and it would be much easier if I could just do that all at once with one click. That's what Workspaces is. So I've set up a workspace to automatically launch VS Code on the right, terminal on the top left, and Notepad on the bottom left, just to kind of demonstrate the power here. And I can double click this from my desktop right when I get to my machine in the morning, everything opens up, and then I'm good to go. How you could set this up is in PowerToys settings over in the Workspaces section. I can open the Workspaces editor, and then from here, select the apps that I want to open in the layout that I want them to open in, and I can also specify command line arguments if I want to get very specific. But here you can see I've got the terminal, VS Code, and Notepad. There's my sneaky second monitor on the left, so it is multi-monitor aware, and then this is the layout that I just launched on the right. You can also create a desktop shortcut to make it easier to launch, and then you can also set it to move existing windows. So if you are switching between projects and you want a workspace for each project, instead of having to reopen VS Code or Visual Studio in another instance, you could just move the existing one, get reset, and then start working right away on your new one. So that's Workspaces. Fancy Zones is one of our most popular utilities, which I think paired with Workspaces makes it even more powerful. But it's a more tailorable window layout manager. So this is just the windows snapping, but maybe I wanted something more specific. I can hold Shift and drag windows around, and it will show me the layout that I've selected in their zones and let me drop them into them, and then I can rearrange my windows this way. Very handy for multiple monitors, very handy for ultra-wide monitors, and it gives you just a more finer grained control compared to Windows layouts. So if I go to Fancy Zones and launch the editor, you can see I've got priority grid set for my main monitor that I'm using here, and then my other monitor, I have a different layout set. So since it's a different aspect ratio, it's a different size, I want a different layout. I can do that in Fancy Zones and then have everything be just exactly where I need it, which just helps me be more productive in my day-to-day. So that's Fancy Zones, and we did Workspaces. Now I want to do Color Picker. Color Picker is one of my favorites, and it's really handy when you need a color quickly and you don't want to go open Paint to take a screenshot and then like grab the hex code out. You guys know what I'm talking about. It's really annoying. So what I'm doing here is actually I want to customize the tab color of my terminal. So this is the terminal settings.json file. This is how I set up my cool looking terminal there, and I'm finding the PowerShell object, and that's defining what my PowerShell is going to look like. So I want to add a property for tab color, and I'm going to hit Windows key Shift C to open Color Picker and grab this green shade off of my wallpaper, copy the hex code, and then in JSON, I'm going to just add the tab color property and then paste in that hex code, and then Terminal will automatically update the settings after I hit save and apply all of the customization, so it's pretty quick. So now my tab's changed and now everything matches and I'm a happy camper. So that's Color Picker, much easier than opening Paint, but it's really handy when you need that color really quickly. For the next one, it's Find My Mouse. I'm sure we've all been there, we can't find the mouse. It's like, it's hidden and like, don't speak too loud, you'll scare it kind of thing. We've added Find My Mouse into PowerToys, where if you double click Control, it will spotlight hover the mouse, like that. And you can find it. It works across monitors, it's great. You can also customize what that spotlight looks like. I think I was doing some development trying to add a feature for Find My Mouse, and then I was using a very loud color like this bright green. So if you go into mouse utilities in PowerToys, you can customize what this overlay will look like. So maybe you want it to be a little more transparent so you can still see your content behind that overlay, and then I'm just gonna make it black to help make it more seamless, and now you can see the spotlight there too. So Find My Mouse is really handy, and I think we ship it on by default, so when you install PowerToys and double hit Control, it should just work, which is great. Now, PowerToys Run. We're getting to the end of the PowerToys, I promise. PowerToys Run is a really quick, fun way to launch anything on Windows. It is a nice little hover utility that pops up with Alt space, and then you can kind of search for any app that you need, any setting that you need, pretty much anything in Windows. So here I've just launched Terminal really quickly. It also has a wide variety of plugins. So we have a calculator plugin. If you need a quick calculation, you could just hit the equal sign, do the calculation, and then get your answer there. And all of the plugins you could see here, like in the very long list, there's a ton. I think one of my favorites is the Window Walker one, where you can quickly search for open windows and then bring that window to the forefront. I like it better than alt-tabbing because hitting tab a ton is kind of annoying. So searching for a window is much easier. And then here in PowerToys settings, you can see the long list of plugins. If you don't want to see them all, if you want to add more, we are open source, so there's a ton of open source plugins that you can get as well, and you can just enable them here in settings. And PowerToys Run uses like an action key, so like for the calculator, for example, I had to hit equals first to then get into that calculator context. And then for the Window Walker one, it was the less than symbol to get into that context. So it's very contextually aware. And without the action key, it's just searching for apps. So it's pretty dynamic in terms of doing different operations all in the same UI. Now, a fun sneak peek that's coming out soon, very, very soon, is Command Palette, which is the next evolution of PowerToys Run. So we've been asking to make PowerToys Run even more extensible, and the way that we could do that is by pretty much rewriting the whole thing. So we've got Command Palette. And this is a plugin that we're shipping by default for WinGet, to make you happy, Demetrius. And you can search for any package you need and then install it directly. So if maybe you're not a command line guru, you just want to use a nice UI for this, this is a great way to get packages very quickly. And it's still using all the same underlying commands underneath, so the performance is the same between the two. Or at least it should be. If it's not, file an issue on GitHub. So that's Command Palette. It's coming really soon. It's going to be fully extensible. It's just the next evolution of Run, and we're trying to make it awesome. So definitely go try it out when we release. And I'm going to hand it back to Demetrius to talk a little bit more about interloop stuff.
Thanks, Kayla. So I'm going to jump through a few things. We are going to see a bunch of windows open. We're going to see some different kind of random things going on. There is definitely a point to it you'll see at the end. So I'm going to start out, I'm going to go ahead and use Terminal Canary, which is just an early developer version of Terminal. I'm going to go to my settings. I'm going to go ahead and specify I want PowerShell 7 as my default rather than Windows PowerShell. I'm going to make an adjustment on what Terminal does when it starts. And then I'm going to go over to the experimental chat interface where I've got my GitHub Copilot subscription hooked in. And by the way, if you don't know this, you all have a free AI interface through GitHub Copilot that you can use as well. So I'm going to jump in now and show you the actual terminal chat experience. This is pretty much what you expect with any large language model. I don't remember what the command is to find the files in some recursive directory search that contain some text. It'll give me an option that I can hit the play button to get it to load up. I'm going to go ahead and cancel out of that. I don't really need to run it, and I'm going to run WinGet list instead. WinGet list is going to display all of the installed applications. It's going to let me know where their source mapping is on the right-hand side. It's going to let me know what version is available if there's an upgrade. Now I'm going to switch over and launch a new window here using PowerShell 7 and show one of Kayla's PowerToys command not found. How many times have you been on a different machine, you thought something was there and it wasn't installed? In this case, I don't have Git installed. I get a prompt for things I might install that understand the command Git. So now I'm going to go over into a command prompt window, and I'm going to use WinGet to install Git. The reason I'm using the command window is we've addressed a decades-old issue where if you're trying to install something and it gets added to the path, we can now actually get it added to the path and get a refresh without you having to close that session and restart in command prompt. And you'll see after this install completes, I can run the get command right away without having to restart it. This is pretty fantastic. This was a huge undertaking. And the great news is we've been partnering with the PowerShell team. They're going to be able to do the same thing in PowerShell fairly soon. Jumping back into PowerShell, showing you it still doesn't know about that path, and close terminal down. So the second setting I showed you was the content buffer restore feature. So now what happens when I launch that terminal again, everything I had open comes back up. How many times have you closed to get an environment refresh or something like that, and you lost the last command you ran or the output that you ran? You'll see that horizontal gray line is an indication of what happened in the previous session. I'll go ahead and close that now, and you'll see earlier I had set PowerShell 7 as my default. So now that's there, and when I close it and reopen in the future, that'll be what happens by default. And then rather than watching all the scroll bars, I'm just going to go through and show you the output from WinGet upgrade. It'll show you everything that has an upgrade available, and if you run it with all, it will simply go through downloading, doing the checks, and updating everything for you in one command. Pretty nice compared to having to remember which apps auto-update or what website they came from. So we covered a whole bunch of stuff in Interloop. It was a lot of features in PowerToys. We covered workspaces for getting things set up on your desktop, fancy zones to be able to customize where things are, color picker because nobody wants to have to go find a different application just to grab a color. Find My Mouse, which is probably my favorite feature because I switch between an ultra wide as a second monitor at work and a pair of monitors in a different orientation when I'm at home, and I never remember where it is. So I can just double control click, finds the mouse for me. It's awesome. We looked at PowerToys Run to give you some customized command line input type behaviors with kind of a GUI on it and a sneak peek of what's coming with Command Palette. I showed Command Not Found, which is another PowerToy. And then on the terminal side, we looked at those features around the AI interface with GitHub Copilot. In terminal, we looked at content buffer restore and the environment path refresh in command prompt. And then for WinGet, we covered upgrading all the software. So now we're going to move into the outer loop. And this is kind of, okay, we're not doing our normal code, build, test, deploy type activities on our local machine. We're probably looking more of those CI/CD processes that go on the outside or other things that you end up having to do that really aren't related to coding. So one of the first things that we're looking at is sometimes you're ready to publish a version of your software to your customers. If you wanted to publish that as a WinGet package, we make that a little bit easier with WinGet Create. It's really designed around CI/CD, so you can set it up in a GitHub workflow or in an ADO pipeline to kind of take the headache out of it for you. But if you were just adding some new piece of software to the community repository, it gives you an interactive way to go through and do that. So I'll give you a quick run through on this one. So the first thing I show people is all of our products have really good help. They have links to all of the documentation, whether that's at Microsoft Learn or whether that's on GitHub. And then in this case, I will show you the experience for creating a new manifest. So I'm just going to use Git's installer and just provide WinGet Create the URL to that. WinGet Create will download that file. It will try to figure out what kind of an installer is it. Is it MSIX? Is it MSI? Is it an executable? Nullsoft, NO, Wix, Burn, pretty much all of the well-known installer texts, we're aware of those. So then we'll parse all of the metadata out of that package and we'll start prompting you with some questions. So I'm just going to walk through on all of these and I'm going to select the default answers because they're probably pretty close to correct. And you'll see I might jump the gun just a little bit here on the license, which is a required field. I went and looked it up. Git is MIT license, so I filled that in there. And when I hit enter, I get a couple more questions of, do I want to add some other locale metadata for globalization? Do I want to modify any of those files? I'm just going to say no on those, and I'm going to say no here. I don't need to publish it to the community repository because we've already got it available. And as I mentioned, that CI/CD scenario, you can go look at PowerToys, and they have a workflow using WinGet Create so that anytime they publish a new release at GitHub, it automatically looks at the previous manifest, and it submits a new pull request for Kayla so that she doesn't have that manual step to do. I'm going to go ahead and hand it back to Kayla for another feature that we've got for you.
Cool. Thanks, Demetrius. So we've been working on adding some fun stuff to Windows also to just make that whole developer lifecycle easier. One of them that we've recently added is end tasks. So if you've ever had a process that's hung, or if you're stuck in a game that you can't get out of, going to the task manager and finding the process is a little more annoying instead of just right-clicking and selecting end task from the jump list. So this is a feature we've added in the for developers settings. And when you go in there, you'll see an option for end task. And I'm using PowerToys Run to get there because it's my favorite launcher. Command Palette will be my next favorite launcher. If I go down to for developers settings, you'll see that there's an option for end tasks. You just want to enable this. And then this works the same way as if you were to find the option or the process jumping around in Task Manager and selecting it and hitting end task. So this is just a bit of an easier way to just kill any process that's hung or stuck that you just want to fully end rather than waiting for the X button to close it out. So that's end task. And then when it comes to doing outer loop things, presentations count. That's part of the outer loop. And especially if you're just doing it online or if you're doing one of these, we've been using a drawing tool from sysinternals called ZoomIt. So this is the utility that we've been using to draw the squiggles and like doing the zooming and the arrows and stuff. This originally delivered in ZoomIt. It's been a ZoomIt utility for forever now. We've recently partnered as the PowerToys team with the sysinternals team and delivered ZoomIt as a PowerToy utility. So it comes by default now as a utility in PowerToys, which is great because then now we just have it already installed, and I've been hitting Control-1 to zoom in, Control-2 to draw, and that's how we've been doing a lot of the annotations, which is really handy when doing presentations and just getting the eye of the audience to focus on one thing on the screen. And since we're talking about PowerToys, one of the cooler ones that we've delivered that I think just makes working in general a little bit easier is Advanced Paste. This is a utility that's basically taking the clipboard to the next level and by adding a little bit of AI as well. So here I've got an issue on a GitHub repo and an image of a README file in French. Maybe I want to take the text out of this file. I can use the snipping tool with Windows key Shift-S to take a screenshot of this. Snipping tool will add it to my clipboard, and then we've added text extraction or OCR as a text option in Snipping Tool, so you can click this button, it will analyze the image and extract the text onto your clipboard, all within Snipping Tool without PowerToys. So this comes by default in Windows, and you can use it today. It's great. Advanced Paste has the same functionality plus a little bit more. So I'll take another screenshot, so I've got that image on my clipboard. And I accidentally screenshotted the whole image when I just wanted lines 1 through 3, so I took a different screenshot. But this is Advanced Paste, Windows key Shift-V. As a local option without AI, I can take image to text and select that and then copy the text out onto my clipboard, just as I did with Snipping Tool, but in a different tool. Now that I have text on my clipboard, I can't read it. I don't know French. So maybe I could use Advanced Paste to translate it for me using AI. We use OpenAI here in Advanced Paste, but I can translate from French to English, and it will give me the English translation of the text that was on my clipboard right here in the UI, and I can copy it out and then keep moving. And now I can read what this says and then help address this issue. Maybe I want to go a little further. Maybe I want to make a text file out of this. So I'll copy the English text on my clipboard. I'm going to head over to VS Code really quick. This is the PowerToys repo. And I can say paste as a text file. This is a local option. And it will paste the text on my clipboard as a text file in the place that I've asked it to, which is great. And in a more recent release of Advanced Paste, we added chaining. So yes, this is cool, and it did take some time. It was like multiple actions to get to a pasted file of English text from an image in French. It would be great if I could just do it all at once. We've added that. So if you take the screenshot again, now I've got the image on my clipboard. I'll open Advanced Paste with Windows key Shift-V. Make sure I'm in the context of VS Code, so when it pastes the text file, it will go there. And I'll just say, translate this file from French to English, paste as a file. And it's going to take all of the same actions it just did and chain them together into one seamless action to help save me even more time. and then it will generate the text file and paste it directly. And it should be in English. Yeah. So that's advanced paste, a fun demo that we like to show, but you could do a ton of different things with it. And in our latest release of PowerToys, we added media transcoding to advanced paste. So I need a video to show this in action. So I recorded a video with my friend Clint, who works on PowerToys with me. So I figured we should watch that video so we know what we're working with. So I'm going to play this really quick.
Hey, Clint, I sent you a spec. Can you just take a look at it and make sure it looks good?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, it's opening it now. Okay, PowerToys is the best thing since sliced bread. Kayla is amazing. Kayla, where's the rest of the spec? Like,
I think we're good. Thank you.
wait,
See you later.
what? No.
Great. So he reads anything out loud, it turns out. And I want to get that into an MP3 file. So I'm going to use advanced paste media transcoding to do that. So to kind of show this is that video. It's an MP4. To prove it's the same video, I'm going to play it really quick so that you know I'm not lying.
Hey, Clint, I sent you a spec. Can you just take a look at it and make sure it looks good?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
Okay.
So same video. I'm going to copy the MP4 file to my clipboard and then use advanced paste Windows key shift V and select transcode to MP3. So it recognizes I have the MP4 on my clipboard already, and it will paste an MP3 file in the same location. And as you can see, it's MP3 compared to the MP4. And to prove that it's the same audio, I'll play it as well.
Hey, Clint, I sent you a spec. Can you just take a look at it and make sure it looks good?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, it's opening it now.
Cool. So from here, I can edit this down. I've now got an audio file of him saying I'm amazing. I can use it against him. It's great. But that's just a quick taste of the media transcoding we've just added, and that's a local option as well, so it isn't using the internet to do that. So to kind of center us back, bring us together of what we've just gone through, we went through the onboarding piece of the developer lifecycle, talking about sudo, dev drive, all the WinGet commands to get your packages set up. Then we moved into the inner loop with all of those PowerToys and using WinGet upgrade. And then we moved to the outer loop where we did advanced paste and WinGet create to publish and all of that stuff. So this next slide, this is the checklist with all the stuff that you'll want to try. Let us know what you think about them. I'm going to leave this up for just a few seconds to let you guys take a picture. But this kind of goes through every single thing we showed. And the slide after this, I have all of the resources and links and like ways to get in contact with us also if you have questions or feature requests or anything. So let you guys take a snapshot of this. I'm waiting for the, okay, cool. And then my name's Kayla. This is Demetrius. We are both on X and Blue Sky if you want to ask us anything, if you find something later. PowerToys is open source on GitHub, so we've got the GitHub repo and the docs repo. Terminal's open source on GitHub, and we have the terminal docs and WSL docs. And then WinGet has 2 repos, one for the CLI and one for the package manager. So the GitHub repos are there. It looks like you got a WinGet, you got 3.
We've got like 5.
You got like 5.
They're all cross-linked.
So they're all up there too, and the docs are there as well. We are going to jump into Q&A, but if your question doesn't get answered today or right now, we'll be at the Xbox Lounge in about an hour doing more Q&A with like live demos if you want to ask us anything. We also want to learn from you of like what's your developer workflow look like, what tools do you use, do you have pain points on Windows? Like we want to know it all, so please come chat with us after. But for now, we want to say thank you so much for taking a listen, and we'll open up for questions. There's a mic. Oh,
Is it this one?
okay.
Is it this one? Yeah.
Yeah. Hello.
Hi. First of all, love the presentation. I'm a big Windows user. I also just wanted to plug my favorite plugin for PowerToys Run. There's one for everything search. If you've heard of Void Tools Everything, so you can just use everything right from PowerToys Run, which is sick. Anyway, my real question was, I know you just went through a fire hose of different things, but is there like some of these I think are kind of common, intuitive, obvious techniques and tools we'd want to use? Are there any like sleeper hits and like underrated features from PowerToys or any of these that you use all the time or that you think people might miss?
Yes, I have one, and then do you have, if you have one? I got one.
You got it.
I'll let you think about it. I have one. File locksmith is great. If you have, if you're like developing and then if you try to delete a folder because you're like, I'm just going to start over because that's what I do. And a file's in use somewhere, and then it says, oh, I can't delete this folder, this file's in use. File locksmith will take a look at the file and then show you the process that's occupying the file, and then you can end the process from that UI, free up the file, and then you can delete it, move forward. Because sometimes I just reboot the machine at that point because I'm like, well, I don't know. So File locksmith is one of mine. Cool. I don't know if you've got any others.
I don't think I have any others, but the Find My Mouse is still one of those just crazy simple but huge lifesavers.
Yeah,
Cool.
for sure.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, totally.
Hi, thank you for the presentation, for sharing all of these tools. I'm actually curious to know if you've seen any interesting use cases for like any of these tools with Excel or Word.
Advanced Paste does have like Paste to CSV, Paste to JSON. JSON not so much in Excel, but Paste to CSV is really handy. Or I think from JSON to CSV, so that's a good one. Word or Excel?
I don't know anything specific. I know there's a lot going on with the runtime and with Copilot plus PC, so I think there's going to be a lot of exciting things showing up there, but I don't know anything specific right now.
Yeah, I would say Advanced Paste would probably be your biggest playground for integrating with those things.
That's really cool. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks so much. Hello.
Hi. Hi. Thanks for all the great work you do. I am a huge fan of WSL, and at my last job, I used it a lot. But I think the biggest pain point for me was that, at least in my experience, like accessing NTFS files from Linux binaries was, like just the file I/O was definitely a bottleneck. So I guess I just wanted to know if we can expect improvements on that front. I also haven't used WSL in a hot minute, so.
Okay.
Yeah, reach out if you've got any questions like that. We can go and do some performance analysis and see if there's something we can do, or at least we can try to figure out how to give you a better way to kind of reason about that. But I know if you're able to use the dev drive using RAFS, you'll see those same performance things carried through. But if that's not where the bottleneck is in I/O, if it's just something translating with NTFS or the permissions, we'll have to look into that.
Yeah, and we also recommend when you're using WSL for all of the files that you're accessing to be on the Linux file system, because you will get that perf hit from going from WSL crossing into the Windows side. I think we're still trying to work on making that better, but our recommendation is just to keep all of your files over on Linux so you don't have
Yeah, that's definitely what I was doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, then yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Cool.
All right, thanks.
Sweet, yeah, thank you.
Hey, so I really like that WinGet configuration to set up a machine thing, but ChatGPT just told me that the PlayStation SDK and the Xbox GDK are still locked and don't support WinGet. Is there any possibility that would ever happen in the future?
So any AI that you're dealing with is going to be trained on data that's probably a little old.
Okay.
And anything that's new that you're teaching it with RAG or something like that, there's probably not enough good samples for it to learn from and to give you good answers. So, any of the sort of new kind of exciting stuff that's going on, you're likely to see hallucination out of the AI. But we are very actively working with pretty much everybody across Microsoft on how the desired state configuration work is happening. The PowerShell team just released a GA for the 3rd generation of desired state configuration, which means no more class-based .NET only PowerShell modules. You can build whatever you want in whatever language you want and just expose that as a way for WinGet to communicate with it. So we are looking at that. We're definitely looking for feedback and figuring out how to build tooling to make it easier to build those configurations as well as testing them. So love to get the feedback. Be sure to put anything on the GitHub repo for the WinGet client, and then from there we're able to kind of coordinate and help you figure out what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, that wouldn't be in my control because I don't work on either of those SDKs. It would be nice to be able to set them up using that tool.
Yeah, we're definitely looking at that.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Hi.
This might be a little bit out of purview of what you guys work on specifically, but I'm just taking advantage of the fact that you're like from Microsoft and I can actually gripe to official developers from there. Okay, I'm gonna explain like my pain point with Windows, and then you can tell me like I have no idea what you're talking about, or you relate. So like basically stopped using Windows Explorer to like search for files, because like when I search for a file in the little GUI there, it takes forever. So I use like void tools, everything, as someone else mentioned. Same thing with like Windows Explorer to like if I'm browsing any directory with tons of media files, it takes forever for it to like sort by file size and stuff. So I use this alternate one that I guess like one person made called Explorer++, which just like loads it instantly like it did back in the old days. That's what I want. Does any of that resonate, or like you guys just use Explorer out of the box? You do.
Yeah, we are looking at the laundry list of everything, whether it's something we see where a customer asks, whether we see it in like Windows Key F, Windows feedback, whether it's something that's coming from our repositories. We're here to make things better for developers, so anything is fair game. We may not own it, we may have to go partner with another team or go, have internal discussions or whatever, but if it's something that would make your life better as a developer, we care and we're here to figure that out.
Yeah, and the file search pain point is something that we directly wanted to help fix with Command Palette and Run. So we are using the indexer in Command Palette to make the file searching almost, not instant, but like way faster than Explorer. So that's something that we're actively trying to work on to just, if like Windows is great, we're trying to make it better, but since we can just work iteratively in PowerToys, we're working on just making that easier in Command Palette. So you could try it out. Run has it too. It should be pretty quick there. But definitely let us know if there's like, even if it's worse or if you're happy with it for searching files. Thank you.
Hello. I was wondering if there were any transcription features for the advanced paste for like MP4 and MP3.
Not yet.
Okay.
We had played with like the OpenAI Whisper library, but that's not something that comes with advanced paste, but it would be cool.
Okay.
But yeah, it doesn't, because I wanted to demo that and then it didn't work. So
All right, cool, thank you.
yeah.
I had one more question, if that's okay. I was on the WinGet configurations. That's one thing I hadn't really seen a lot before, but it seems really powerful and useful in a lot of different ways, obviously. So I was wondering, are there any like community repositories of like community-made configurations or templates to use out there to kind of jump into it and like learn it and stuff like that?
So we do have a bunch of samples on GitHub at the WinGet-DSC repository. We are kind of coordinating some of that together as an awesome list. You can do searches on Google for the JSON schema header. You'll see there's hundreds of sample configurations out there. And we are starting to work our way across Microsoft Learn and updating our docs from the go here and click this type of instructions to, if you want to do it that way, here's the manual way, and otherwise, here's a WinGet file that you can use.
Perfect. Cool. Thank you.
You bet.
So is the paste functionality extensible? For example, let's say I have a proprietary media file that only I have the decoder for, and I would like to transcode it to something standard like a WAV or an MP3. Is there a way that I could extend the functionality to add the proprietary functions to it?
There isn't a plugin or extensibility model for advanced paste, but you could clone the repo and add it as like a file type that it would accept. You could see if the AI function would just do it for you, or you can make a pull request, and then if that file type is something that a bunch of people would want to convert from, you could add that too. But there isn't like a extensible way to do it that's friendly.
Okay,
yeah.
thanks.
Hello. Are all of these only on Windows 11?
WinGet goes down level to Windows 10 RS5, which is already end of life. And I think PowerToys will install on Windows 10 as well. Mm-hmm. So some of these, like WinGet is only going to ship in newer versions of Windows, but you can absolutely go do updates from the Microsoft Store, or you can download it from GitHub or use the PowerShell module to repair WinGet, and it will work all the way down. Also on Server 2025, it's there natively. You can run it on Server 22, but that's experimental. And if you go dig in the GitHub repo, you'll see plenty of examples of people running on even earlier OSs.
Okay, yeah, because I was curious if any of it was on Windows 10.
Yeah.
while it's still out, you know?
Yeah, pretty much all of it, except maybe some of the specific Windows features. Like, I don't know if sudo made it down.
I don't think sudo did.
Yeah, or
and
ntask.
And I think some of the AI things may be limited because they could be
Hmm.
looking for an NPU or something else.
Yeah, but majority is on Windows 10.
Okay,
Yeah.
man, not end task. Okay, thanks.
Cool, yeah.
Hello. I work for a company and we build tools, so I use a lot of WinUI3, and I also looked into WinGet. But the nature of our company is that we do not publish to a public GitHub depot, and everything is kind of locked internal. And so I looked into WinGet, but I couldn't find a convenient way to package basically an installer that I can use within the company. And I think the only way that I found was that we would have to set up a separate server to host it. And I guess my question is just like if there's other ways where maybe there's a network resource or other ways where I can quickly create an installer and test out deployments without depending on cloud infrastructure outside of the company.
Sure, if you're just testing a local installer file, you can create a local manifest and you can enable that with admin settings in WinGet, and you can just say, hey, WinGet install -m, give it the path to that local manifest and run the installer.
Okay.
And as far as hosting a private WinGet REST source, we do have the project that runs on Azure, but there are open source examples out there for running local on a server. There's one that runs in a Docker container, and there are a couple of companies that offer commercial service that support both cloud hosted and on-prem hosted sources.
Okay, thank you.
I think that's all the time that we have, but we will be at the lounge in what?
Like, at 2 o'clock.
At 2 o'clock we'll be in
Yeah.
the lounge.
Cool, thank you so much.
Thank you.